All right, good afternoon, everybody. So after you've now been energized, hopefully I'm not going to bore you back into a rest state. So anyways, my name is Blois. I'm the CEO and founder of Upande Limited. We've been operational since 2009 as a company in Kenya, working primarily originally in the services industry, building custom work for people, but then increasingly moving towards products. So I want to take you through the journey a little bit for our ERPNext experience over the last decade. So I don't have the slides on my screen, so if you see me looking there, that's the reason. So it's not cloned in that sense, but we'll make do with the technology. So yeah, I already mentioned a little bit about us as a company. Our aim is to allow our customers to make data-driven decisions, so that's not based on politics or on feelings, but on actual live information. And that live information in some cases comes from the field. So that comes through in the form of sensors, but in some cases it comes from digital records. And of course, digital records brings you now to operational health. So of course, it's quite easily tied into ERP. So I'll explain a little bit how we got engaged. So this is just an overview over the years, over the 10 years, of a couple of highlights that we have experienced in our journey so far. Starting in 2013, we were part of a Dutch embassy-funded project called IRAP, where there was a professor from the Netherlands who was very passionate about a tool he was looking to deploy for WRA. And in those days, they're called Warma. So it was a system to help track now extraction, to track also the movement of goods throughout the office. And he came up with a customization, and it was actually very effective. But I think it was actually too effective, right? Because it was actually allowing full transparency of all of the movements. And it was, it was a bit ahead of its time, and it might still be in a way. But through that application, we got to see the power of that tool. I'm going to just have a few quick slides on some of these projects. So when we saw the WRA implementation, we realized, okay, that could actually be interesting also for utilities, right? Also having different amounts of figures for water, depending on the usage. So some of those components we thought we could actually pick up on, even if WRA doesn't embrace the system. So that's how we got involved in the WRA system, which unfortunately wasn't adopted, but we pitched it all the way to the top a couple of times until we had to park it and focus our energies elsewhere. Through our interactions, particularly with development partners, we were able to now ourselves start using the tool more. So we started using ERPNext as a project management framework, moving away from Zoho, from ManyMoon. We thought, let's track our projects in this system because we've seen that it also has a module called projects. And before you know it, you start using one module after the other, and before you use it, you realize you start becoming a power user, and you can actually start offering services with it. So we did a deployment for managing grants, for example, through DANIDA, the Danish aid organization, which is basically just using the grant framework that is there, that we hosted that we self-hosted. We were also a partner earlier on, but then when I guess also the specs changed a little bit, we were no longer partners. But yeah, we are still very keen to see how we can formalize that, hence also my question. And I think it's a no-brainer that that's going to happen very, very quickly because we have been using the system more and more as we go through time. So moving from the grant framework, we actually had an opportunity to propose a system for tracking aid flow for Somaliland. So this was for a national government, actually. So again, it was a great experience to build the application, and we were just about to actually release it. But then unfortunately, with politics, things change. People move on, somebody new comes in, you find that you're starting from scratch, there's no handover. And to date, we're still looking to see whether we can actually pick up on this work. Although, of course, a revision is going to be necessary because so many things have moved on since then in the version of the framework that we've been using. And of course, all of these amazing implementations are done by our tech team. Some of them are actually in this room. You've heard them also speak. So they are actually doing all of the magic, right? So for me, my main aim is to conceptualize what could be done and then to explore together, of course, with the customer and with our team, what is actually possible. So they are the real magicians here. Yeah. And even some people who've worked with us in the past, some even in this room, also working with different organizations, are actually also championing some ERPNext in different organizations that we know of. So that's very exciting. So when we saw the work in the water sector, that we saw an opportunity there, right? So I'm Dutch. I have a lot of connections in the water space. So I'd been told so many times, come up with an affordable solution for water utilities, for billing and things like that. So we've been working on that for years. We actually have modules built for that. We've tested them with different potential customers. But one of the points that was also mentioned by a gentleman, I'm not sure if he's still here, is you have to work with people, right? So I don't see him right now, but that's been one of our challenges too, is that in the end, how are you going to get people to use it? If there's no top-down, let's say, support that was mentioned in the healthcare that will force people to use it, there can be so much resistance along the way. Utilities, okay, politics get in the way. It's been a very hard journey to actually get them to fully embrace, because systems like this are also a threat to how things are operated, unfortunately. So yeah, and then of course them also needing a lot of hand-holding, more than we have budgeted for, means that we are paying so many things out of our own expenses, right, just to get the traction. That's been quite challenging, I must say, in the utility space. Also, how procurement works. If we come in with a solution, but we can't show that we already have 5 deployments that are bigger than so many $100,000, right, we get disqualified from the onset. And then how procurement unfortunately also works is that the process is quite often not very transparent. So there's certain games in procurement, in government, that unfortunately happen, that we are not prepared to play. So we've actually had to not be able to put in bids for this reason. So the uptake has been slow, but we're still pushing on. That's the good news. During COVID, we're coming out of quite a difficult period as a company, a lot of changes, of course, a lot of cash not coming in. We were actually working on with a partner from the Netherlands to see whether also rapid testing of sewage could be done in the field, with a link now to also a module that we built on the Frappe framework. But the tests were a bit expensive. The COVID figures really started going down very quickly, so there wasn't a lot of interest. So unfortunately, the uptake of this tool was not what we wanted. The good thing is that we were able to raise interest from a drinking water test company in the Netherlands, with whom we're now exploring whether this module can become part of their software stack. So that's an accomplishment. In 2022, we also started working with in the bakery industry. So what was interesting about that deployment is that we had to figure out a way for sales people to also be able to upload data to the system. So it was our first journey, so to say, in now testing of a mobile app, also to push data from the field into the ERP, data on sales of bread, and this has been adopted quite well, and we have a good uptake of the tool, with the potential now to build upon that again in other verticals. One of the things that we've been working on, as I mentioned, as a company is working in the water sector. Working in the water sector means dealing with water sales data, water meter data, which increasingly now is going to be coming in live as meters go more and more smart. So since 2013, we've already been working on different ways to get live data from the field using something called IoT, Internet of Things, using radio to capture data from far corners. And we have been building modules for that in different IoT platforms, but more of late, we've also been seeing how to now feed that data also into the ERP. And that's something that we now are able to do with an application that you can see here of things like temperature, humidity, water quality, but even things related to aquaculture and new forms of agriculture like insect farming, where the management is very much focused on the environmental parameters. If something is not right, you need to get an alert right away, and you need to act, right? So a live system is really what is needed, and sensors coupled with ERP can actually bring that. So our journey in the water sector, we are still pushing on, as much as it's been challenging, and we are now repurposing some of the code that we've been working on before, now targeting on smaller utilities. So not dealing with the bigger government ones, but more privately led organizations. Somebody introduced themselves as they also involved in water. So we're very keen to have that conversation and see whether there are any synergies, of course, or anybody else in this space. But again, we're dealing here with small water entrepreneurs running private water, which is how water is organized for about 80% of the country. But again, of course, the ability for them to invest in tech is low. But through a partnership with AMREF, we've been able to now basically help operate smart water utilities now in Kajiado, and we're now looking at Narok as well, to see how those business models can also really start taking off and having impact on the community. So that's a partnership that we've been able to join through an organization called Water Starters. So in Water Starters, the sales aren't coming, let's say, from a shop. It's informal. There's no, let's say, taxes being paid, but maybe people will buy water through an ATM. But again, that is now sales data still. So what we're working on right now is integrating data from water ATMs into now sales, so that the water entrepreneur can get one full dashboard of all of their transactions, both on the sales side, on the expenses, so they can also themselves see the status of the health of their operations. Development partners who are helping finance it can actually see that the cash flow is healthy, right? Banks can then start becoming interested because they can see that there's a live monitoring capability that allows them to also see that the loans are secure because there's actually proper usage going on. So this is what we're helping achieve. And the beauty of having live records with IoT means that we can also have full accounting of water. We know how much water is being pumped up. We know how much water is being sold. Live, we can do the water balance calculation and account for any gaps, right? You don't have to do this quarterly or annually. No, it's happening daily. So at the moment, we're piloting smart water meters with Kisumu and in Runda. So this is just something that's currently being tested. We have also a meter reading application that also basically pushes the data for the non-smart meters into the same system, so that old and new meters can also coexist and also become part of one system. And in order to also see how that data can be used more effectively, we're not just looking to see how we can offer B2B services, but also B2C. So how can we have the customers of our customer also access their data? So that's what we're looking to do now with the latest app that Stefan actually is working on, which is a B2C now example, where we're now actually pulling data from our ERPNext instance, and having that data now come to a Flutter app using the latest Google code, where one can see their own consumption, set their own targets, and see how they're doing compared to their budgets. And it's still very much in development, but the prototype is already working with actual data. So those are exciting developments that we see ahead. So for us, I had to really be here today. I actually flew in late last night. I wasn't actually planning on being here, but since we've been, advocated to work with ERPNext for 10 years, and this is the first community event that is being held on ground with the same professor who's still reaching out to me regularly, saying, "Hey, how are things coming along? Are you picking up something in the Netherlands? What part are you able to open source?" I thought, let me make sure I'm part of this event, because we've been, yeah. So we're looking for partners, because indeed together you can go much further. And also in spirit of the open source thought process, and how we've also benefited from Frappe and from ERPNext. That's why we first wanted to show what we've been working on the eTIMS, but with the plan that we're going to be open sourcing that as soon as it's approved. Of course, we need to just, first of all, test it and make sure that we clear all of the hurdles that are still there. There's still a couple of feedback things that we had to work on. So that's why we haven't pushed for it just yet. But that should be a matter of days, if weeks max. So it'll be interesting to find out how we'll be able to share that information through the network. But we're here to partner and to see how we can do things together. That gives a snapshot of where we stand. We're looking forward to further interactions. And again, it's very inspiring for us to be part of this today. And again, welcome to the people coming from all the way from India and from Uganda and Rwanda, I believe. This is very exciting, and we're looking forward to the next steps.